Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today's video, I'm doing my September 2022 wrap-ups. I was able to read 6 books. 2 of the 6 books were 2 stars, 1 book was 3 stars, 2 books was 4 stars, and I had 1 5-star read. So I would say overall this month was more of a mixed bag. I feel like my previous months I was more lucky and had more skewed 4 and 5 stars. But you can't win them all. I tried new books, I tried hype up books, and I got disappointed. But that's fine because someone still took the time to write a book for me, and I'm so glad that I was fortunate enough to consume it. Before I go into my wrap up, as always, I'll appreciate if you like my content, so please hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you have read any of these books. Let me know what you think. And if you have any recommendations for me, I would love to hear it down below. My first book in September was Colin Hoover's Faraday. This is my declaration that this book, Faraday, will be the second last Colin Hoover book I will ever read. And why it is the second last and not the last is because Eliza's Bookshelf actually recommended me to read this other book called All Your Perfects. That is really good. So I have that book on hold at a library, and I'll give Colin Hoover one more try for me to redeem herself, but I don't know, I feel not very optimistic. So Faraday is unlike her other books because it is her first thriller romance. I believe that most of her other books are all romance. I only have read one other book by her called Reminders of Him that I also did not enjoy. So a quick premise of this book is we meet writer Lowen, who is signed to co-author a famous writer's last, I think, 3 books of her series. And this famous author, Faraday, she had gotten into an accident and basically she is a vegetable. So Lowen has to go to Faraday's house to kind of go through Faraday's office, all her notes, see any manuscripts for the last 3 books of the 9-book series. And because she's at Lowen's house, she is in close quarters with Faraday's husband. And of course, you can kind of guess, because this is a romance. Of course, even though Faraday is married to her husband, Lowen, our protagonist, because she's in close quarters with Jeremy, the husband, they kind of have this like chemistry, this spark, and then things start happening. And then while they get romantic and sexual and stuff, Lowen sees all these signs of like Faraday. Maybe she isn't a vegetable. Maybe she's like watching Jeremy and her and Lowen getting together. And this book for me just wasn't great because I felt like there's a lot of boundaries being disrespected, a lot of no great communication, which I think is so important in relationships, not just romantically, but in all adult relationships. And yeah, it just wasn't great. I think the thing that really made me hate the book and made it a 2 out of 5 is because there is a scene where the 2 main characters, Lowen and Jeremy, practice unsafe sex, and it's very explicit, and they take the risk. And I'm just like, oh, like I'm not a fan of this. You can have passion and whatever, but still be safe about it. So yeah, this book just wasn't for me, but I did give it a 2 just because it was thrilling and I did feel spooked out by the writing. So I think Colin Hoover's writing is decent. It's just not my type of material I like reading. The next book I read in September was The Bread the Devil Needs by Lisa Allen Agostoni. I gave this book a 4 out of 5, and this book was really enjoyable for me because it was set in Trinidad and Tobago, and also the author is from that region herself. So this book was about a woman called Alethea, and she is turning 40 soon. She manages or works at a clothing shop, and she had pretty unfortunate or very rough childhood. And she unfortunately is currently in a 5-year long-term relationship with her boyfriend, who also beats her very, very aggressively in the book, and it's actually quite hard to read. I also want to warn that if you decide to read this book, there is very explicit descriptions of the abuse from her boyfriend, but also in her childhood, and there is also childhood abuse. So just to give you a heads up for trigger warnings. So basically, Alethea is, she's older and she's going through a tough time, but she's just kind of like, sucking it up. Not that you should, but in the book, she's just kind of sucking it up and just living life, whatever. But then one day, she witnesses a domestic violence situation where a woman is running away from her abuser and towards the clothing store that Alifia manages, and then gets shot, and then the woman dies in front of the store. So Alifia has this wake up call, and it's kind of like this could happen to me. Like right now, her boyfriend is just beating her, but it could really escalate to her being shot and killed. But she's still very complacent to do anything about it, even though people around her kind of look out for her and stuff. But then one day, her best friend from a long time ago and also a brother that she kind of lost touch with come back into her life, and then all these things from her past come about and these realizations, and then she also has a business opportunity from her best friend. So, you know, this book kind of comes into her life when it's about at the cusp of changing. It's kind of like a slice of life book, but it's very heavy material. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5 because it was something I have never really had a lot of exposure to. It's very eye-opening for me. I think I just gave it a 1 out of 5 just because the author writes like how one would talk in that region. So it's English, but it's like, I forgot the language, but basically I think it's called Creole, and so basically it's a bit difficult to read, a bit choppy. However, it kind of really throws you more into the story. So yeah, this book was a 4 out of 5. The next book I read was Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. So this book I saw was really popular, especially during COVID. And this book is about Michelle. It's a memoir or biography of a time in her life where she was in her mid-20s and she gets the news that her mother is going through cancer. So she has to drop her life out east in America to go back west to the Pacific Northwest to take care of her mom. So this book is I call it a memoir / biography, but it's honestly just like a very long journal entry of her relationship with her mom and how taking care of her sick mom, how it unleashed a lot of these feelings and emotions and understanding between mother and daughter, and not just the struggles between a mother and daughter relationship, but also the struggles of between two cultures, because Michelle Zauner is half Korean, half American, and her mom is full Korean, and her mom was born in Korea, but Michelle was born in Korea but moved to America at 9 months. So basically she's American. So just having this huge culture clash, and just her, you know, with her mom sick, her spending this more time for her mom, having more understanding, but also racing against the clock because her mom is sick. So this book was really great because, you know, I am fully Chinese, but I was born in Canada, so I could relate to a lot of struggles that she had with her mother. I also lived in Korea for 2 years teaching English about 10 years ago, so it's very nostalgic for me whenever Michelle talked about Korean cultural things and when she went back to Seoul. So this book was a really good read. The only reason I gave it a 4 out of 5 was because I felt this book could have been just a bunch of articles or a really long article that you could read online. I don't know if a book was the right format for it, but I still really enjoyed the content. The last 3 books I still have because either I had bought it or I still haven't returned to the library yet. The first one is Almond by Son Won-pun, and this book is by a Korean author translated, and this book is an easy 5 out of 5. So basically we meet Yoon-jae. He is in his young teenage years, and he has a disorder called alexithymia, which is a real condition that 1 in 10 people have, which I thought was very surprising to learn about. I'm going to assume it's a spectrum though, so it's not as severe as Yoon-jae in this book. And basically alexithymia is caused by, I think, the amygdala in your brain, where basically it's like the shape of an almond in the size of your brain, and if it's underdeveloped, then you have this disorder called alexithymia. So basically Yoon-jae, he is raised by his mom and grandmother to kind of learn what social cues are, how to react, because he just can't read people's emotions, and he also cannot feel emotions. And then one day his mother and his grandmother go for dinner, and his mother and grandmother and 4 other strangers are brutally attacked by a mass stabber. It's a mass stabber, not a gun shooter, because guns are very hard, if not very legal in Korea. So in this book, it was a mass stabber. His grandma dies, and his mother gets into the ICU, basically a vegetable, and Yoon-jae is left to fend for himself. And one day at the hospital, while visiting his mom, a stranger goes up to him, an adult man, and goes, "Hey, you look like my son, and my wife is dying, and I want my wife to see our son before she dies." So Yoon-jae pretends to be the son for this strange man, And then the son of that man happens to be in Yoonjae's class, and basically he was estranged from his family, came back, but he was estranged because he was kidnapped as a kid, and he lived like 10 years on his own in the streets. So basically the story becomes that Yoonjae becomes friends with Gong, which is like this like really rough kid in his school, and through like a series of events and stuff, Yoonjae starts feeling emotions, and he starts like experiencing, asking why things are the way they are. It's kind of like a coming of age story, and I don't really want to spoil it, but it's like a really short and quick read because it's a young adult's book, and like they start every chapter on the right page, so you get a lot of blank pages. But it's a 5 out of 5, and like I feel like I'm rambling right now, but it's just really good because of the social commentary. I don't want to do any spoilers, but like the reason why I love this book is because it made me have, and this is like so fucked up when I say it out loud, it made me have so much empathy for psychopaths and mass murderers, and I can't believe a book made me feel that way. So I really encourage you to read this book and read it with a lens of empathy for people that you think are evil, because it really just broadened my mind. So I really, really recommend this book if you're able to read it. The next book I read was a nonfiction book. It's called Hooked: Food, Free Will, and How the Food Giants Exploit Our Addictions by Michael Moss. So this is a nonfiction book. It is not a direct follow-up, but he also wrote a similar kind of book back in 2013 about the food industry. And basically this book talks about how we're so addicted to processed food and how it's not just us to blame for us to make bad food choices, but these companies, these food giants like Kraft or Heinz, are doing it deliberately, and they actually use our biology against us. So they will add additives to these foods that don't taste or anything, don't add sugar, but they act like sugar molecularly, so we become addicted to it. They also try to control the whole food industry because, for example, in the book, they talk about Heinz is a processed food company, but they also bought, I think it was Weight Watchers, which is like a weight loss service. And then they also bought the food products that Weight Watchers sells to their users. So in a way, they are controlling the sector where people eat food to gain weight. And when people gain too much weight, they want to lose weight, so they go to Weight Watchers, which they also own. And when you're using Weight Watchers, they're pushed to use these food products that help you lose weight, which they also own. So it's just kind of like, whoa, how can they have the power and luxury to control so much of the food chain? And like, do they have our best interest in mind? Spoiler, probably not. So this book was really enjoyable to read because, I don't know, it's always fun learning, right? The only caveat why I gave it a 3 out of 5 is because it's nonfiction and it was very dense. It was a lot to read, and I hope Netflix picks it up as a multi-episode series, because I think there's a lot of good information in this book, but not everyone has the patience or capacity to read it, which is totally fair. But I do think the knowledge is important to get out there. So if you like nonfiction, I recommend it. But if you're not really into nonfiction, it might be hard to read, and that's okay. Let's hope Netflix picks it up. The last book I read in September is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. And this book, I gave it a 2 out of 5. I do want to caveat that I am in my mid-30s, and if I'd read this book when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I probably would have enjoyed it and gave it a 4 or 5 out of 5. But I think as I'm older, I'm not the target audience, and I'm not really into like this kind of drama. So basically, we meet Cadence, who is from a very wealthy and privileged family, and her and her extended family go to this island that her grandpa owns every year. And here they just have like a very luxurious life. And then one summer when she's 15, she gets into a swimming accident, and the following summer she's not allowed to go back to the island because her dad really wants her to go to Europe. And then the following summer, when she's 17, she goes back to the island, but everyone's acting really weird and won't talk exactly about what accident happened to her when she was swimming. And things don't really add up. People are being evasive. Things have changed. And then basically there's a huge reveal that reveals what happened. So it's kind of like a mystery. And I can see why people would enjoy this book. But for me, like, it was very like, woe is me. And like, oh my God, like, very teenage emotion. Like I said, if I was younger, I would think I would really romanticize this book, but because I'm older, it wasn't my cup of tea. I also didn't like it because in a book where there is an ensemble of characters, usually there's one or two redeeming characters, but in this book, there are zero redeeming characters. So it was hard to read, to cheer for anyone, and I just didn't enjoy it. That is my September wrap up. Thank you for watching until the end. If you have, please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.